Yes, people, what's happening? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to another edition of the London Divide. And obviously on the weekend, we had the big one, Chelsea versus Arsenal at the Bridge. And I don't really think it went how anyone expected it to go. A 2-2 draw. Arsenal getting out of jail in the last 10 minutes, thanks to Robert Sanchez inviting some pressure onto us. Costly mistake there. And then we kind of shit ourselves a little bit. Arsenal can count themselves fortunate. Look, it was one of them for myself where kind of at the game, mixed emotions, delighted with how well we played, and also absolutely raging that we threw it away because I thought we locked Arsenal down pretty well. The tactics from Pochettino were spot on, but there's loads of things to get into. Obviously, the goalkeeping situation as well. Sanchez and Raya not covering themselves in glory is a wider conversation to be had there. Martin Odegaard taking a bit of heat as well, I'm seeing, for kind of ghosting in big games. We'll discuss his impact at Arsenal. Yeah, there's loads and loads to get into. Cole Palmer balling out again. Looks a top player. But Webby, thanks for coming as always, mate. We spoke about the game last week. I don't think any of us had it down to sort of go the way it did. I guess obviously don't need to go into it in too much detail because it's been and gone. But I mean, what were you surprised at how poor Arsenal were?
Yeah, we were poor. I think my summary of the game was basically, I thought Pochettino got it spot on. Like, Pochettino's tactics were really, really good. Basically played that striker, absolutely flooded the midfield and just got Chelsea workhorsing. And it put us under so much pressure and we didn't really cope with it very well. I thought like Palmer basically playing as like the false striker, him, Sterling and Mudryk, no one really playing in the central position, dropping back into midfield. Gallagher, workhorse, like, was so good, I thought. So I thought you can put a lot of what was good down to Pochettino. Like, it wasn't like Chelsea rocked up and balled Arsenal off the park and were pinging it round. They just got their tactics spot on and made it so hard for us to play. We didn't adapt well enough. We didn't react to that, and we suffered from it. Having said that, it was a really weird game in the sense that basically out of the 4 goals, like, basically 3 of them were just random flukes, basically. Not flukes, but hear me out. The penalty, no matter what your opinion is, whether it's a penalty or not, it was basically Saliba jumping and it hit his hand.
Yeah,
like,
it's one of them,
we
isn't
have
it?
to count that a bit.
Yeah, no, it's one of them, isn't it? Like on the current laws, it is a penalty. Like we saw on the Saturday, 3 of them given. One given at Anfield, one given for Sheffield United, one given here. We have hammered officials. I suppose like the law's ridiculous and the handball thing needs changing, but at least they were consistent across the board on that one. It's one of them where you're fuming about it, but
exactly
with the rules that are the rules, that's just unfortunately the way it goes.
Exactly. So penalty from our point of view kind of is what it is. Just a bit of bad luck. Chelsea go 1-0 up. And then again, we'll get into Raya. I'm sure there's stuff to discuss there, but no matter what Mudryk says, he shanked across and it went in the far corner. No matter what that boy says, I promise you, he did not mean to shoot. So you can basically again put that down to, regardless of what you think of Raya, a bit of a freak goal. And then you have the Sanchez mistake, which unbelievable finish from Rice, but again, an absolute freak goal. So basically, you've got 3 goals in a very cagey game that have kind of come from absolutely nowhere. And then obviously Arsenal's 4th goal was a bit of quality. So from that point of view, from Arsenal, it was a bit of a random game. But I was dead impressed with how Pochettino set you up. I thought he got it dead on, flood the midfield, don't let us settle into our passing game and control, and made it really hard for us. Having said that, I thought when the second went in, I thought we were going to go on and win it. Didn't turn out to be.
Mate, I said after the game, like, it's kind of mad how football changes so quickly. But I said after the game, if that game was 5 or 10 minutes longer, we'd have lost that, which is kind of a madness. I think, like, what disappointed me the most from a Chelsea perspective is the fact that we played so well. Like 10 out of 11 players plus the manager were superb, got everything spot on, everyone carried out their roles perfectly. It's progress, but it's frustrating at the same time. The fact that we comfortably outplayed Arsenal for 80 plus minutes, that's huge progress. And like, whether people like it or not, that was an easy win, bar individual mistakes. So that's got to be looked at as a real promising sign for us, a real kind of coming of age. But then it can't be overlooked or denied either that once again we've dropped points when we should never have done that. Now I kind of put it down to a lack of experience in terms of in terms of seeing games out. Even when it goes 2-1, right? You know, I know we're then, you know, Arsenal fans get up for a bit more. The players get a bit more belief, and there's a bit more of a never say die attitude about Arsenal that a few years ago you're 2-0 up with 10 to go, and you're like, well, Arsenal doing nothing. They're not coming back. But there seems to be a bit more about them now. But I was just really disappointed from a lack of game management, a lack of being able to see the game out. You know, I don't care what level of football you're playing. You should never be chucking away a 2-goal lead with 10 minutes to go. It just shouldn't happen. And I think we'll obviously learn a lot from that. But I can also take a lot of, you know, not a lot of positives from the fact that we played really well. Cucurella was superb. Gusto was great. The defense was good. Midfield was good. And the front line caused a lot of problems as well. I think like before going into the ground, when the team sheet drops, you think we've got no recognised centre forward. I'm thinking, this might be a bit difficult. You see Arsenal's team, it's their strongest 11 available to them, really. You could argue about Havertz for Jorginho or whatever, but it's pretty much the strongest 11 available. And I'm thinking, well, this could be a long afternoon, but fair play. Obviously done some work on the training pitch and whatnot on it, and it did work very well, but we were just let down by individual mistakes. I mean, what did you make to you, mate? Did Saka look fit? Because I know obviously you can't have a good game every game. He's been in and out with injuries. I was very worried about the Cucurella versus Saka battle, and I know he got the assist for the equaliser, but generally speaking, like Saka didn't really do anything in that whole game. Do you think he's fit? Because
I think he's fit. I just think he suffered from the fact that Chelsea, I think, as I said, we didn't really cope with the fact that Chelsea like basically packed the midfield and made it really hard to play. So he didn't really get to supply the ball. But if you look at it from an Arsenal perspective, when we really, really, really needed it, he rocks up with an absolute peach of an assist. And depends what you look at. Like, I know I sent you a message, like he absolutely had one of his most quietest games of the season. But geez, when you're 2-1 down away from home at Chelsea, up against it, you know, that's what you need your best players for. And it was a seriously good pass to pick out Trossard. So I think he's fit. Honestly, he ain't playing that long if he's not fit. As I said, I've said on this before, you've got to trust the club, and yeah, I just think he suffered because our performance wasn't great in general. So he didn't get much of the ball.
Yeah,
didn't get it in the right areas.
No, I hear it. I mean, in terms of how you view it from an Arsenal perspective, obviously you've got to be delighted with a point given the circumstances. But in the overall picture, are you disappointed with the point? Do you think you should have, is that a game you should be winning? Particularly kind of following on from Man City.
It's hard because I don't think a point at Stamford Bridge doesn't define your season, does it? If you get a point at Stamford Bridge, you draw against United, you beat United, you draw against Spurs, you beat City. Like, I'm pretty sure you snap someone's hand off for that set of results at this stage of the season, as long as you keep winning the games. If you back it up with 3 points against Sheffield, all of a sudden you've taken 7 points out of 9 from City, Chelsea, Sheffield, and you're like, that's pretty good. That's top 2 running form. Disappointed with the performance. I think a point, as I said, it's not the end of the world by any means, as long as we back it up on Saturday. But probably just mostly disappointed with the fact that it took us 65 minutes to react to how Chelsea played. I think, as I said, I think Chelsea set up the best that a team set up against us this season. And we didn't really react to it. It wasn't until the last 20 minutes when the game got a bit more stretched that we were able to start to get some authority. So that's probably the most disappointing thing, but also very pleasing, like 2-0 down, to show that character to get back in the game was brilliant.
Yeah, it absolutely wasn't, as I referenced before, that's something that's kind of new to Arsenal. I'm not sure maybe if you even would have done that last season potentially. I mean, you might have, on occasions you may have done, but you get the feeling now of Arsenal that even if they're goals down with 10 minutes to go, like that you not to write them off. I think you've scored maybe the most goals in the league in the last 10 minutes, or certainly right up there. What do you put that down to? Because that's not always been there. We saw late goals against Man United at home, obviously a late goal to win against City, late goals in this game. I mean, that's a really good trait to have as a team. I mean, what do you put that down to?
Put it down to probably just having really good depth now. If you think we're able to bring in the game on Saturday, we were able to bring Tomiyasu, Havertz, Trossard off the bench, and they all made a massive difference. Tomiyasu at left back was brilliant. Havertz held the ball up really nicely when he came on and allowed us to play longer balls. And then obviously Trossard got the goal. So the strength in depth, we can bring players off the bench. That's 2 games in a row, City and now Chelsea, that the subs have contributed to getting us points. And also, I just think Arteta's drilled in a never give up attitude in the squad. But I'm pretty sure if he saw a player at 2-0 down after 80 minutes trotting around, they'd probably not start for the next few matches. So yeah, that's what I put it down to.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, look, again, another thing I take a lot of positives from is the fact that we're playing not with a full strength team. And I know, you can say, oh, you spent all this money, but the fact of the matter is we played that well with no Nkunku, no Reece James, no Disasi, who's been a first choice player for us this season at the back. No first choice left back. So 3 of the starting back 4 not available. And we didn't play with a centre forward either. So, I mean, there's positives to take in that regard. For the tactics were spot on. I think Pochettino definitely got the better of Arteta. The only thing I would say is that the substitutions, what made the difference, our subs didn't really have an impact. I'm not really sure what the point of them was. I get that players get tired, etc., and you need to make changes. And I think people were critical of Pochettino for his changes. But ultimately, if Sanchez doesn't make that mistake, no one's talking about the subs. So it's kind of one of them where you're almost a victim of circumstance. I don't think the changes were particularly shit or anything. It's just that obviously after the events transpired, it's quite easy to say, oh, well, he should have left X, Y, Z on. But what I would say is it's happened the last few games now. Mudryk tends to come off as one of the first players, and we don't tend to look as dangerous. So maybe that's something he needs to stay on longer. Again, we don't know what the gaffer's thinking and whatnot, but I don't think that the subs particularly helped us. I think the difference for Arsenal now, as you said, you've got options, good options from the bench. It makes such a big difference having them. I know you haven't always had them, but it makes a massive, massive difference. And we're starting to see that now with our bench. Now with players coming back and getting fit again, having options on the bench is such a game changer. And then someone like Trossard, who is a top player. Even someone like Havertz, who not necessarily hit the ground running or particularly done anything special. It's just that it's an option off the bench that obviously you've not always had. So those options are obviously really, really important. Before we get into Chelsea, I just want to talk about your skipper, Odegaard. Obviously had a brilliant season last season, but I'm seeing quite a lot of stick coming for him from Arsenal fans, from kind of media in general. Against Spurs, he wasn't particularly good. Against United, he wasn't. Did he score against United? He didn't score, did he? I can't remember. No, he wasn't particularly good against United, from what I remember. And again, against Chelsea, he was anonymous. Now, again, is that down to the fact that we stifled him, or is that down to the fact that he just wasn't at it? It's probably a combination of the two. But do you have any concerns about Odegaard going missing in big games? Because it seems to be quite a big talking point at the moment.
Yeah, sorry, he did score against United. I don't know why I said
no. He did. Yeah.
Thinking of the goal he scored. It was just, no, he scored it. Yeah, he certainly isn't at his best. I think, firstly, as I said, I would give credit to Chelsea. I think the fact that, again, I keep saying it, I think they stifled the midfield really well, and Odegaard might be gone in January. Well, that's not right, but he's our club captain. He's not at it at the moment, but he's been our leader. He's been fantastic for a long time for us. So I'm confident it's only a matter of time before he gets back to his best. I just wonder whether he's suffering in Arteta trying to evolve the system a little bit. We've spoken a bit about the way Arteta's trying to develop us as a team, and Odegaard's suffering a bit on that. But I also just think on the ball in general, regardless of what system you're in or who you're playing with, when you get the ball in that attacking third, he's probably not showing the quality that we're used to. He gave the ball away a few times on Saturday, where we're used to seeing him play a really nice pass. So yeah, a bit disappointing at the moment, but he is our leader. He's shown how effective he can be. He does lead from the front. and I just think he had a really bad day in a big game away from home, which isn't that rare for an attacking midfielder. That happens, doesn't it? And I'd fully back him to come back, whether it's tomorrow night against Sevilla or Saturday against Sheffield, and show what he's all about. Yeah, and he looks pretty tired as well. I was thinking while I was watching, because he put in a shift for Norway. I wonder whether, we spoke about the international break affecting players, I wonder whether he suffered from that a bit. But
yeah, I mean,
I'm back him to come back.
I mean, what have you made of shouts? Because I'm sure you might have seen them. I've certainly seen them of like shouts of people saying that, you know, Rice should be the captain and stuff. Like, I mean, obviously, I know it might be a bit reactionary and whatnot, but I mean, I don't want to say Odegaard is not a leader or not a captain, but you look at someone like Declan Rice, and I'm not saying, you know, obviously Odegaard became captain pretty quickly after joining Arsenal. It's not unheard of for players that haven't been that long at the club to become captain. Rice to me just looks like outwardly displays much more captain, you know, characteristics than saying Odegaard does. I mean, what do you think of Odegaard's captaincy and how he goes about? I know obviously captains, you can captain in different ways, but when you look at captains of the past, Adams, Vieira's, Keane's, Terry's, etc. I know maybe the modern day captain might be slightly different, but I just like, for me, Rice like feels and acts like a captain, if that makes sense. I'm not saying he should be the captain or anything, but do you get what I'm getting at in terms of Odegaard? Doesn't necessarily give off those kind of captain vibes. I guess people captain in different ways, but what do you make of the way that he captains the side and stuff?
Yeah, like, you're right. He does captain in a different way. He leads more by example and behaviour and attitude and work rate than necessarily a Rice, who, like, we know that Rice's personality, and hence why Rice is getting rolled out for literally every post-match interview, because he speaks so well, doesn't he? So good. I think Odegaard is our captain, and he's done really well. He communicates between the players and Arteta on the pitch, so whenever there's a break, it's always him that's like going over and chatting. He was fantastic last season. Like, we ain't going to strip Odegaard of the captaincy because he had one bad game and a few bad games, but I think we're just lucky to have Rice, mate. He's proper leader. I was thinking on Odegaard as well, because Norway got knocked out, didn't they? Like, I wonder whether
they can still make it, but they can only make it through the playoffs, so it'll be quite difficult for them.
I wonder whether that played a part, and also, like, I know this sounds absolutely ridiculous, but it was a pretty heavy pitch, wasn't it? And
yeah, mate, when it was a very
fast-paced game.
There was a lot of water. Like, when passing it, there was a lot of water coming up off the pitch. Like
yeah, and Chelsea absolutely basically stopping the supply line to him. I just think there was a lot of factors in play that contributed to him having a pretty anonymous day. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, 100%. And you know what? Like, it's always the case. Like, you can't play. Players are going to have shit games. It happens. They're humans. Ideally, you don't want it to happen in the big games when all the eyes are on it. But it happens. You know, it's the way it goes sometimes. But look, I think Odegaard is a top player. Yes, he's not having as good a season so far as he did last season. But, you know, there's definitely no need to kind of give up hope on him or to kind of be worried about him. But yeah, you do obviously want him to start picking up his form as soon as possible, and then obviously, like, because he has gone missing. He didn't have a good game against Spurs, didn't have a good game against Chelsea. Like, it's not the end of the world, but you want to make sure that doesn't kind of become a habit with players, because 1 or 2 games, you don't want that turning into sort of 3 or 4, and then you're having a bit more serious conversations. Mate, before we get into goalkeepers, we've talked about Cole Palmer quite a lot. Mate, I can't believe how good he's been. I think we kind of knew he was a good player. You know, he was a fringe player at City for sort of about 3 years. Obviously, you know, he's learned under Pep Guardiola, come through the City Academy. He's well schooled and whatnot. And he's suddenly become one of the main faces of this kind of new Chelsea project. And on the face of it right now, like £42.5 million in this day and age for someone that's 21, 22 years of age, it looks like an absolute bargain. I mean, can you believe how well he's done so quickly?
I thought he was brilliant on Saturday. I thought he played really, really well. He showed all his quality. I don't think I'm surprised, because I think we spoke before about how Like, he just didn't have a chance at City. Like, he's a quality player, isn't he? You don't get that far at City without being that good. So I suppose it's testament. He's obviously a big character, isn't he? Like the way he took the penalty on Saturday while Sterling was trying to take it off him.
Yeah,
and
Sterling
he's obviously got
to one side. Yeah.
Yeah, that's big for a young lad who's new to the club. Just say, no, it's me. And that's what you want. Like, you should be buzzing with him as a fan. And he showed on Saturday as well, tactically good as well, because he basically got asked to play a position where he had to drop deeper, but he managed to do that and still influence the game and still do his defensive duties. So he's a really, really good signing.
There was at times when he kind of dropped into that almost holding midfield role as well.
Exactly,
I think Pochettino's a big fan of his. And there's so much ability there. We talked about maybe versatility with Kai Havertz being almost a bit of a hindrance at times. Cole Palmer's kind of a similar versatile player, can play a lot of roles. But yeah, I thought, do you know what? I thought that the kind of the front three of no recognised forward and kind of just causing carnage really didn't help Arsenal. I think if Nicholas Jackson had started, I think you probably would have found it a lot easier with a bit more of a conventional setup rather than like.
Yeah.
Do you think that caused you a lot more problems than you expected? I mean, let's be honest. Arteta probably. Do you think he was expecting like no centre forward to start? I mean, it must have been in his thinking potentially.
Yeah, I think Arteta would have potentially expected it because him and Pochettino are best mates, aren't they? So
I had no idea they played for PSG together. I didn't even realise. I didn't even realise Arteta had played for PSG.
Yeah, from a Chelsea point of view, if I was a Chelsea fan looking at that game, I'd be absolutely buzzing with how we played against Arsenal. The question is, because you can't play like that every game, right? You basically played without a striker and played a very, very, not defensive is the wrong word, but a very compact and hard-working style of play. And look, as I said, we're being brutally honest. Cole Palmer had a good chance that he just put past the post first half. But the two goals, one was a pretty fluky penalty and one was a shanked cross. You can't play like that every game. So what I'd be looking at from a Chelsea fan is, right, how's that system looking when we bring a striker in? Because Pochettino's shown that the players can work hard enough that in bigger games against an opposition where you can't potentially go in how you'd like to play with a striker and fluid and open, you can sit in and grind it out. But that's not how you're going to play every week, right? Because it was basically a system that was designed to play against Arsenal, because Poch knew if you went in with, like you said, potentially Jackson up front, we'd control the midfield and it'd be easier for us. So yeah, it's good signs, but it was a very unique style of play, I thought.
Yeah, I think
he definitely adapted it.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting to see kind of what he potentially rolls out against Brentford, obviously next weekend. Whether he goes with the same thing or whether it was just Arsenal specific. I think like there's what's promising as well is there's like a clear identity, a clear kind of tactical setup. There's clear roles for players. Players know exactly what they're doing. They're giving 100%, which is such a big difference from last season. But the one thing that can't be avoided is that it's dropped points again. Like, despite how well we played, we've dropped more points. And in the race for them Champions League spaces, we can't keep dropping points cheaply like that. And, you know, yes, Arsenal showed good, determination and good attitude not to give up. But it wasn't you engineering your own goals. It was very much us gifting you the comeback, if that makes sense. Do you know what I mean? It's like if Arsenal had, made their own goals from their own good play, do you know what? Hold my hands up, fair enough. But it's the fact that we gifted it to you, obviously, the mistake from Sanchez and then Gusto sleeping at the back stick. I even watched it back a few times. I'm thinking, maybe Sanchez should even be saving that. It kind of goes under his, like, it's not away from him. It is pretty close to him. I'm not saying like it's an absolute howler or anything, but maybe he should save that or certainly do a bit better with it, because it is pretty close to him. But yeah, look, I mean, it is what it is, isn't it? Like, obviously, it's just disappointing because like game management is something that we have to improve on. I know it's a young side and they're not necessarily experienced in the big moments about how to see games out. And when you've like Sterling was off the pitch at the time, but when you've got Thiago Silva as kind of the only experienced head in kind of big moments, it's quite hard to like. We need to make sure that we see games out better. Like even when it goes to 2-1, there's 6 minutes left plus added time. Like, there's no reason to start shitting ourselves and panicking. And like, we literally just went straight into reverse and looked like we were going to lose, and just like all the good work from the previous 80 minutes just kind of went out the window in that last 10. Like, we have to learn to manage the game better, get better at reading situations, and that kind of brings me on to goalkeeping now as well, mate. Obviously, it wasn't a good day for either goalkeeper. Not a good day to be a Spanish goalkeeper, certainly. Let's start with David Raya. There were chants from the away end for Aaron Ramsdale. I know he's out of the squad because he's just had a child, so obviously that's why he wasn't involved. There's a lot of people calling for Ramsdale to come back in now. And do you know what? I don't have too much sympathy with Arteta on this one, because he's kind of backed himself into a corner here where he's like, Ramsdale started the season and then kind of out of the blue, he dropped him for the Everton game and put Raya in. And then Raya is now clearly the number one. So it's almost like Arteta kind of has to stick with Raya. Otherwise, he looks pretty stupid. We'll get on to the wider conversation about whether Raya should be dropped or not. But, I mean, what did you make of his performance? Because, again, he was shaky. His positioning for the Mudryk goal, whether he meant it or not, is irrelevant. Like, that's not a good position to take up. And then, obviously, he gives it away to Cole Palmer as well, where he could have done a bit better there. Distribution at times was pretty shaky. Again, it's more mistakes. I mean, what are you making of him?
Yeah, so my take on the goal is Raya as a goalkeeper is an aggressive goalkeeper, right? He's set up to come and claim the ball, come and claim crosses, ease the pressure on the defence. And that's why he was positioned where he was. That's how Raya plays. He's very good at claiming crosses. And I just like, honestly, I just think Mudryk shanked it, just went in, and it was a bit like a deflected goal. When a goal gets deflected and the keeper's out of position. Having said that, it was an ultra aggressive position. He was like beyond his near post, so you could probably say to him, look, take a little few steps back just to be safer. But I just think a lot's been made of that goal because it looked crap. But ultimately, I just think it was a bit of a freak. I really, really believe it was just a bit of a freak, and I don't think you can account for that. Like, we haven't replaced Ramsdale with Raya for that kind of moment. That's going to happen to a goalkeeper once a season, and it was just unfortunate that it was on a big stage where he's under pressure anyway, and there's talk of Ramsdale Raya. So with the goal specifically, that's my take on it. He obviously had a dodgy pass, which I kind of sympathised with him a bit when he got the away end chanting for Aaron Ramsdale and you're under the pump like that. But then, having said that, he made a really good one-on-one stop against Jackson and made another good save going across him. So, mate, I've spoken about it before. Raya's our number one. He will be backed. And I just wish, from an Arsenal point of view, this Arsenal fans themselves, I don't mind wider noise, but I really don't like Arsenal fans chanting Ramsdale mid-game. Like, who does that help? Guy wasn't even in the stadium. All you're doing is creating more stress. I just think that was just, there's no need for that.
I mean, do you think Arteta has to stick with Ramsdale? I mean, obviously, this is all hypothetical, but how bad do you think it has to get for Raya? Say against Seville tomorrow night, he makes another howler, and then maybe he makes like another one over the next kind of couple of Premier League games. I mean, obviously, this is all hypothetical, but realistically, how, injury permitting, how sort of bad do you think it has to get for Raya for Ramsdale to even be considered?
Well, I'll tell you how Arteta will be thinking right now. He will be thinking that goal was just a fluke. Arteta won't be too fussed by the Mudryk. He won't see it as a howler. He'll just say, right, that was a one-off. And he will love the way Raya plays on the ball. Like, it's just, Raya needs a couple of games of just uneventfulness, right? Whether it's flukes, whether it's mistakes, whether it's bad passing, whatever, just a couple of games just to ease the heat off him, because at the moment it's just that heat isn't helping. But honestly, from Arteta's point of view, I don't even think it will be in his mind. Like he said in his post-match press conference, someone asked him like pretty much that question, and Arteta said, "When I made this decision, I knew this would happen." Because Ramsdale was a fan favourite. Of course, the media are going to go nuts about it. Like you said, you don't have any sympathy. Of course you don't, because this was absolutely, obviously, anything that Raya does that isn't 100% is going to cause everyone to talk. But Arteta knew that, so he's going to back him. Raya just needs a couple of quiet games to kind of let it all settle down. But yeah, that's where I'm at, and that's from someone that really likes Aaron Ramsdale as well.
Mate, it's kind of mad. There was links again today for Ramsdale to Chelsea. Like it's certainly a weird one, but yeah, Ramsdale obviously is going to be in a situation where he's going to have to assess his options. He'll probably play in the Carabao Cup next week against West Ham, you'd imagine. But it's goalkeeping again in a wider question. Again, Robert Sanchez for us, it's about reading the game, assessing the situation. I appreciate now that modern day goalkeeping, managers want their goalkeeper to play out from the back, be good on the ball, and obviously be good with their feet. But at the same time, what I'm saying is you need to understand when is right to play out from the back and when's right to just put your fucking laces through it and hoof it upfield or put it out for a throw-in. Like when you're 2-0 up in a game with about 13 minutes to go, and you can see that Arsenal forwards are kind of pressing down on your short options to pass out from the back. Don't attempt to play a player into trouble and then get it all wrong. Just get your foot through it. You're not going to get sacked for doing it. You're not abandoning your principles of play every so often really isn't a bad thing. I think so many of these goalkeepers now, whether it's Raya, whether it's Sanchez, whether it's Onana, you need to read the situation, read the game better. At times, you can abandon your principles of play and just put your foot through it. I mean, I think we might have mentioned it before, mate, but what's happened to goalkeepers just focusing on goalkeeping? Why are they suddenly trying to become outfield players? And with all this, they want the goalkeeper to be good with his ball at his feet, etc., etc. What's wrong with just putting your fucking laces through it or playing out from the back? Is just anyone can play a short pass 5 or 10 yards to a defender. I don't know why we've got this obsession now with goalkeepers having to be almost as good as an outfield player with the ball at their feet. What's happened to just focusing on goalkeeping?
I think that's what Ederson does, though. Plays for the best team in the league, and that's how he plays, mate. He is exceptional on the ball. He is an exceptional passer. He plays so many.
He's unique, though, isn't he?
But why? If you're a football manager, you want the best for your team, don't you? Ederson literally does it week in, week. I know he didn't play, or Ortega played at the weekend. But Ederson does it week in, week out. So managers want that from their goalkeeper. And if it's not Sanchez at Chelsea, you can bet that Pochettino will want to go out and get a goalkeeper that can do it. Having said that, of course, there's times where you need to apply logic. Sanchez was a lucky boy on Saturday as well. He should have given away a penalty. Went Superman flying through Jesus. So I saw that PGMOL are issuing another apology. And I don't really want to talk about it because
it wasn't even looked at.
No, it didn't get looked at. They're going to apologise to Arsenal. But again, from Sanchez's point of view, he went absolutely Supermaning, didn't he? Took out 3 blokes. So it was not a good day for the goalkeeper. But, mate, my opinion on it is it's the way the game just is now. And as I said, Ederson shows the benefit of it. And that's the level that goalkeepers have got to be at now.
I mean, do you agree with it, though? Because it's kind of an interesting point, isn't it? Because obviously, I know football evolves and roles change and stuff, but is it really essential to modern day football that a goalkeeper can play out from the back? Because essentially, playing out from the back is just being good at passing. How shit were goalkeepers at passing before? They can't have been that bad. Do you know what I mean? It can't have been that bad. I mean, obviously, yeah. It looks good on the eye and stuff, and you build up an attack from the back and you score it. Obviously, it looks like a good goal, but I mean, I just don't know how necessary it is. Is it really that essential to how well a football team plays if the goalkeeper's good with the ball at his feet? Look, I mean, it's not going to change or anything, but I mean, is it really that essential? Teams were fine. Teams were fine sort of 10, 15 years ago. You didn't really have Petr Cech in his prime playing out from the back, or Courtois, or Seaman, or whoever else you've had, Lehman, etc. Do you know what I mean? Is it really necessary?
Well, what I'd say is, look at centre half. Centre half never ever played like that in the same era. Whereas if you're a top team now, your centre half basically has to be elite on the ball, don't they?
Yeah.
So managers are literally looking at, well, if a centre half has to be elite on the ball, then your goalkeeper needs to be elite on the ball. Because if your centre halves are going to have plenty of the ball and make the most passes, a lot of them are coming to and from the goalkeeper. So I think if you're going to win the Premier League, yeah, it has to be. Basically, you have to have an elite ball-playing goalkeeper. That's my opinion on it. I just think that's how the game develops. You know, people are always looking for 1%. As your Arteta, how are we going to beat Manchester City? They've got the best ball-playing goalkeeper in the world. And he's tried to upgrade there, but I suppose it's such a contentious issue because when it goes wrong, it goes really wrong, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It's one of them where like a mistake isn't just like, oh, we kind of got away. Like it's almost always like a catastrophic mistake, and it will 9 times out of 10 lead to a goal. Look, I mean, obviously Raya, is probably going to be long-term number 1 at Arsenal. Certainly, that I guess that's the plan. I guess that's probably the same plan with Chelsea and Robert Sanchez as well. I mean, I look at Sanchez and I think I like him. He's a good goalkeeper. He's done reasonably well, but these mistakes that these goalkeepers are making are costing the team. And you can't keep doing that for a prolonged period of time. I know here, put in the chat saying that like keeper making 1 or 2 mistakes isn't an excuse for the rest of the team to lose focus. I agree with that. Like that Sanchez mistake isn't an excuse to then go and play shit for the next 5 or 10 minutes. But what it does do is it spreads panic amongst the team and gives the other team a massive lift. And football is all about momentum. And the momentum switched so quickly then. So whilst it's not necessarily like cost us the game per se, it's massively changed the momentum. And momentum in football is massive. It really is. I just look at Raya and Sanchez and I just think good goalkeepers, but are they realistically, like, do you think, because for me right now, I'm unconvinced that Robert Sanchez is a good enough goalkeeper at this point in time to get to where we need to be in terms of, is Robert Sanchez a sort of a Premier League winning goalkeeper? Is he a Champions League winning goalkeeper? I don't think he is. I've got to be honest. Right now, I don't think he is. He started well and he can certainly improve. He's only 25. Goalkeepers obviously develop at a far later stage in their career. Their primes are much later. So I'm not saying he can't be, but right now I'm still kind of massively unconvinced. And I'd probably say the same about David Raya as well. I mean, do you honestly think, mate, that David Raya is the guy to be in goal for Arsenal to win a Premier League title when you look at the quality of goalkeepers like your Edersons, like your Alissons, etc.? Do you think these guys are actually good enough?
With Raya, I suppose time will tell, won't it? I think he certainly got the ability to do what Arteta wants his goalkeeper to do. Like Raya is really good passing wise. I guess the thing is when you're doing it with the microscope on you more, like with all due respect to a Brentford or a Brighton where Sanchez and Raya were at before, you just don't get the level of scrutiny as you do at a traditional top 6 club. I hate saying that because it sounds disrespectful to other clubs.
That's true.
Arsenal or Chelsea, it is just true. Like if those mistakes potentially get made in Brighton v Brentford last season, where with Raya and Sanchez in goal, you just don't get the scrutiny as you do in Chelsea v Arsenal. So I think when you're looking at the goalkeepers, you have to ask the question is, can they do what they do best at a big club where the media is all over them, where the fan base is absolutely all over them and they're under a microscope every week? Because that really tests your character, doesn't it?
No,
I have no doubt that both Sanchez and Raya are quality goalkeepers, but it's at a different level, isn't it, at Chelsea and Arsenal compared to Brighton and Brentford? So that's where the challenge will be.
No, absolutely will. By the way, guys, keep smashing the likes on the video, people. Let's get to at least 50. We need 20 more likes. If you've not smashed the like on the video, make sure you hit that like button. It's free. It takes seconds and it massively, massively helps out. It's a quick and easy way to support myself and the channel. So if you're locked in now and you've not smashed the like, please make sure you do, guys. It is massively important. So let's get those likes up and subscribe, of course, people, if you are new round here as well. It's greatly appreciated. Mate, you've obviously got Sevilla in the Champions League tomorrow night. Sevilla away, not for everyone. I don't think I speak to you earlier, mate. I'm not sure your centre forward's going to score 4 like ours did when we last played away there. It's a tough place to go. It's become an even more important game than it already was, following on from losing against Lens in the previous match day. Sevilla, obviously, just appointed a new manager, not doing the best, but there's something about them in Europe. It's still a tough place to go. Mate, how are you feeling about this game? Because I don't want to say it's must win, but like it's taken on a lot more. It's taken on a bit more importance than it already had.
Yeah, it's not must win because that's just not how the group works, is it? You're right. Like you could definitely lose tomorrow and still qualify if you win your home games, especially. But mate, it's gonna be so tough. Like you said, they're not doing great, 13th, I think. But recently they've only lost 1-0 away to Barcelona, and they've drawn against Real Madrid. They are a really good side, and like you say, in Europe, there's just something about Sevilla that is unique. I know this is Champions League, but in Europa League they've been the kings, haven't they? So going to Sevilla is going to be exceptionally tough, and I think it's going to be such a good test for us. I don't think it'll be a completely different challenge to Saturday, won't it? Hopefully it'll suit us a bit more. I can't see Sevilla using the same tactics Chelsea did. But if Sevilla have got anything about them, the manager, maybe you do that because we struggled against it. I mean, huge game, mate. Huge game.
What changes do you think Arteta will make in terms of maybe tactically, in terms of personnel potentially? Because obviously you're going to go with the same team after a tough game against Chelsea on Saturday. A couple of days later, you're in with another big game. I mean, do you think maybe someone like, do you think Trossard potentially starts? Do you think maybe Tomiyasu will start ahead instead of Zinchenko, who was awful? Do you think Havertz comes in instead? I mean, like, what sort of changes and do you expect, and like, how do you expect Arteta to approach this game? Do you think just much of the same, or do you think he'll think maybe Chelsea was unique and will just carry on how he's been doing, or maybe that's given him a few things to think about?
Mate, I've got no idea. Every time I try and predict what Arteta does, I said Jorginho would start Saturday, so I've got that.
Yeah.
What I would say is he needs to address it like the most important game of the season is the next one. I couldn't care less about Sheffield on Saturday. You put your best team tomorrow, and you're probably quite fortunate that you're playing one of the relegation teams on Saturday. So if you're going to rest players, you rest them Saturday, not tomorrow. Do you know what I mean? Like if you look at Bukayo Saka and you think he's got 120 minutes in the next two games, then 90 of them or 80 to 85 of them need to come tomorrow and then bench Saturday. So I hope Arteta, and I'm sure he will, pick the best team available that he thinks will beat Sevilla. I think I could potentially see Tomiyasu coming in at left back. He adds so much. He's so effective. Zinchenko wasn't great on Saturday. But then Zinchenko is one of Arteta's favourite players, and when he's playing well, he's so important. Mate, it's so hard to second guess, you know. But as I said, whatever the personnel is, I expect Arteta to pick the strongest team available because, like I said, Sheffield Saturday gives you the opportunity.
Is that at the Emirates as well?
At the Emirates, yeah.
So
you can see
that's going to be that's like, no disrespect to Sheffield United, they are dog shit. That's an easy win.
And then you've got Carabao Cup after that as well.
Yeah, there's no excuses not to go full strength. I totally agree. It's a tough place to go. Good, like, big atmosphere. But I think Arsenal have got a good chance of getting a positive result. But it's going to be interesting. But sort of back to a Chelsea perspective, like, mate, do you think, you know, now we're starting to see? I mean, I know it's still early days, of course, but you're starting to see like Pochettino's ideas, what he's starting to do. I mean, how impressed have you been with kind of the work that he's done so far, even though we don't have the points on the board that we perhaps deserved or perhaps we should have? Do you think he's doing something, some good, like, is building something good here? Can you see kind of what he's trying to do? Do you think we will get better and better?
Yeah, like, I'm impressed with what he's done, of course, because you are getting better and better. But then, like, it comes back to the point that from a non-Chelsea fan's point of view, and Chelsea fans won't like to hear it, but it's a reality, is, yeah, if you spend that much money, eventually it's got to work. Do you know what I mean? You stick Enzo and Caicedo in the midfield, and you sign Madrid, and you sign so-and-so, and all these names you've signed, you spend that much money. Like, yeah, if you get time on the training ground, of course it's going to look sort of good eventually. Like, it can't possibly not. So yeah, having said that, it doesn't devalue the work Pochettino's doing because you've still got to gel the squad together. And as I said, I thought he was tactically brilliant on Saturday. I think he let himself down with the substitutes. I wouldn't have taken Palmer off. I wouldn't have brought Jackson on, but we've spoken about that. But yeah, I think it showed signs of of building over the last few games. Like the stats were there, you know what I mean? Chelsea have been underachieving, and your in-game management needs to improve, but the performances have been there. And I just kind of think, well, yeah, obviously you've got Enzo Fernandez and Moises Caicedo at the centre of your midfield.
It's all right,
like,
isn't it?
It's gonna be good eventually. Like,
yeah.
Let's not pretend you've got two absolute bums that don't know what you're doing, or two young lads that are they're two elite central midfielders in there, and it is gonna come good eventually. So yeah, Mudryk's starting to show, isn't he, what he's all about, which we've
both said quite a few times. Like, I'm so glad that people are finally starting to see how good he is, because I think a lot of people have hammered him and written him off so early, like not understanding that he barely spoke any English when he came. He's coming from the Ukrainian league, which, no disrespect, compared to the Prem, is dog shit. Like, it's terrible. Like the step up's massive. New language, new country, you know, homeland at war, etc. Like, all things that people don't take into account. It was going to take him time. He hadn't played since November when he joined us in January, so he's had to like kind of build his fitness up, etc. A little mini pre-season and all that. I'm just glad now that he's getting more confident. You know, Pochettino really believes in him. He's getting a run of games, and he's starting to show people what he can do. And he is a really talented boy. There's no denying it. Yes, Pochettino said afterwards, you know, yes, he's pleased with him, but he can play better. He can do better. So, like, I think he will be a really important player for us, and I think he will show a lot of doubters that he's so much better than people give him credit for. I know a lot, like, Chelsea fans love him, like they really believe in him. It almost feels like it's kind of like Mudryk's kind of Pochettino's little personal project. Like, I don't know if you've seen it. You know, he gave him a copy of his book about his time at Spurs. I don't know, like, if he's going to read. I don't know if he's going to read it or not. But like, he always, yeah, he's like, you almost feel like it's like a personal project. He really obviously wants him to do well. Like he wants all the players to do well, of course. But I mean, I'm just delighted that, you know, obviously he got that goal, whether he meant it or not. Obviously, had to be against Arsenal. Shame it didn't count towards a win, but like, he's really showing now how good he is. Like a lot of these players are now. And I think, like, do you know what? A lot of people kind of looked at it from outside of Chelsea. Even some Chelsea fans question it, myself at times as well. Like, what are we doing with this transfer strategy? But I think you're now starting to see the first signs of, do you know what? Actually, when people were saying there was no plan, we don't know what we're doing and whatnot in the market, you can kind of see now that there was a plan, and some of these players are now starting to come good.
Yeah, the plan was basically just sign as many young players that are available as possible that are good. And like, if you sign good young players, then once they start to feel settled, you're going to start playing well. So I think that's basically what's happened. But I think there's some unsung heroes. Well, I say heroes. Like,
Gallagher's been phenomenal.
Yeah, like, and the two I was going to mention were Gallagher and Cucurella, who I think get disrespected quite a lot, probably by Chelsea fans themselves. Like, they're not necessarily, like, when you get them doing the right job, they're good footballers. Like, Cucurella defensively is a really good footballer. There's a reason why Pep Guardiola wanted to sign him at Manchester City. I just think when you work out what position the team works out how they fit in best, Gallagher is an all action, and when Pochettino must have said on Saturday to him, look, Conor Gallagher, you just go out, don't give Arsenal a sniff in midfield, shut down every ball, and when you get him doing that role, he's quality.
No, he absolutely is. I mean, he's surprised a lot of people. Like, he is a good player. Like, he's got everything in his game. Like, the one thing that's gone missing was kind of the one thing that people always associated him. It's kind of a bit of an eye for goal from his time at West Brom. He scored a few. Obviously, at Palace, he scored a few. That sort of eye for goal's kind of gone missing a little bit. But in terms of, like, on the ball, he's definitely improving on the ball. Off the ball, he's great. And if he can just add that sort of eye for goal that he has had previously in his career, then he's going to be a really complete midfield player. And it's been quite kind of a transformation. Again, it really helps when you've got a manager that believes in you and trusts you, etc. That makes such a big difference. I don't think people quite appreciate how big confidence is in football and how big it is for a player to have the trust of the gaffer. That makes such a difference when you go out on the pitch. And on Cucurella as well, like, I'm a fan of his. I like him. I think he's a good footballer. Like, I think he was, like a lot of players that come in last summer and in January as well, like, kind of the victim of coming into a dysfunctional mess at Chelsea, which was never going to be conducive to those guys showing the best of their abilities. And do you know what? Cucurella was going to leave in the summer potentially. The move to Man United on loan fell through. He got his head down. He trained hard, and he got opportunities in the Carabao Cup. Then through suspension and injury, which sometimes is how you get your break, he came into the side. He played against Brighton. He was very good in the cup. He played against Fulham, where he was good. He played against Burnley. He was good. And then obviously he played again against Arsenal, probably his best performance. And as you say, mate, he's very good defensively. Yes, he's perhaps not as good going forward as a Ben Chilwell is, for example, but he's got a good skill set and he's a very good footballer. And it's almost like he just needed a run of games and a bit of a chance. And like football's funny, innit? Like nowadays, right? It's got people are so quick to write players off. If you don't do something in like your first 5 games, you're shit. It's mad. Yeah, like it is that's probably one of the worst things about social media era is like suddenly like after 5 games you're dog shit. It's ridiculous. But yeah, I think he's a good player. I do really like him, and I'm delighted for him. I'm obviously delighted when all Chelsea players do well, but I'm particularly pleased for him given how tough a time he's had. He's been booed by the Chelsea fans, not myself, but by sections of the fan base at games last season. Like it's just not helpful. So yeah, I'm really pleased to see him do well, and kind of long may it continue. And it's great problem to have, whether it's Colwell at left back, whether it's Cucurella, whether it's Chilwell, whether you're going Gusto or James, whether you're going Badia Shield, whether you're going Colwell in the middle, whether you're going Disasi. These are great headaches to have. So yeah, look, it's good to see, and people just need to be a little bit more patient with players. But I mean, obviously, this day and age, the patience is not really there. But mate, for the last 10 minutes or so, I wanted to round out a slightly different note. Let's talk about Unai Emery, obviously former gaffer at the Emirates. He's doing an unbelievable job at Aston Villa. Mate, they are looking a serious outfit right now. I don't know about you, mate, but before we get into his time at Arsenal a little bit, do you feel he's disrespected as a manager? Because I don't think he gets anywhere near as much credit as he deserves for the jobs that he's done. Winning the Europa League with Villarreal, the amount of Europa Leagues he's won with Seville. Obviously, the Arsenal job didn't quite work out for him. It was always going to be tough being the first one to follow Wenger. And then obviously what he's doing at Aston Villa now, he's doing a superb job there. They look a top outfit. I mean, what do you think of him? What do you think of how he's viewed? Because I think like on the continent or in Europe, certainly he's viewed very highly. But I almost feel in England, like people are only just starting to wake up to how good this guy is.
Yeah, I think he's got exceptional tactical knowledge, and he's done an exceptional job on the continent and now at Villa. I think he gets a bit disrespected because when he came to Arsenal, he became a bit of a joke, didn't he? Because his English wasn't great, and some of the phrases he said, and I think people just took the piss out of him a bit, and that kind of stuck through the whole time at Arsenal. Probably a bit unfair, like on him, just because his English wasn't great and he had an accent and he said some funny stuff. People took the piss out of him, but yeah, mate, I'm really pleased to see him do well at Villa because he's a really fine gentleman at Arsenal and carries himself really well, really good representative of the club. From an Arsenal point of view, we can't get away. We played some stinking football under Unai Emery. We were one. It's weird because we just missed out on top 4, and obviously Baku, we were one game away from a European trophy. But mate, we stunk the place out in Baku. I remember one game, for example, we went away to Watford, and I think they had 30 shots. We drew 2-2. They had over 30 shots or something. That happened under Unai Emery. So from an Arsenal point of view, we can't sit here and pretend that he was.
Why do you think it didn't work for him at Arsenal? Do you think whoever was going to follow Wenger after Wenger immediately was not going to work out? I mean, why do you think it didn't work?
Yeah, I think bit of a. I agree. Whoever followed Wenger was always in a tough job. I just think he tactically got it really badly wrong at times. He persisted with the kind of 3-5-2 at times. I think he struggled because at the time his English was really poor, and I think he really struggled to transmit his ideas to the players. I think that's probably improved at Villa now, which is helping him. And yeah, I don't know, he tactically got it wrong. We just had too many stinking performances, mate. And some of the driest football I watched was under Unai Emery. But having said that, he came very close to Champions League qualification and a European trophy. So yeah, you got to pay him respect. And as I said, I'm like delighted to see him doing well at Villa, because what you're seeing now is what he wants to implement. He's getting results, but also he's getting results in quite an attractive way. They're playing really, really good football. So it's showing that he's not just limited to being a results manager. He can get results and play well, which he didn't get the chance to show at Arsenal.
Mate, I tell you what, mate, there's like, I know obviously you boys will probably be all right, but like there's some serious teams in the league this season in terms of strength in depth. Like Newcastle are putting themselves together again now. Villa are really good. I think Brighton probably just will fall just short. They just concede way too many goals. But it's tough there now. Spurs, Villa, Newcastle, etc., going for them Champions League spaces. Us, hopefully, Man United aren't doing particularly well. Like, do you look at this as good for the Premier League? Like the fact that now teams that you wouldn't normally associate with challenging for the top spots are now banging the mix. Do you look at that as a good thing for the league? I mean, it has to be, surely.
Well, mate, the top half of the Premier League is top quality now, isn't it? Like the bottom of the Premier League feels not weaker than that. It feels weak this season, but maybe that's because the top half is getting so strong. Like you've just got clubs recruitment is so good now. You've got clubs like Brighton recruiting from South America in just such a good way. You've got players like Diaby signing for Aston Villa, who are top quality players. So I think players are just desperate to come to the Premier League now. The competition in the top 3 or 4 is so strong for places that players are happy to go to your kind of so-called lesser clubs. I also think you can't ignore the fact that if we look at one club in particular, they're owned by a state, so that helps. And like, let's not pretend that Newcastle kind of just plucked up from nowhere and like challenged the big boys. Literally, like you pump money in, that's what you get. But yeah, good for the Premier League, but yeah, I don't think like the Newcastle situation is not good for the Premier League. But that's probably a discussion for a different podcast, mate.
Mate, to be fair, I just, mate, I don't actually mind Newcastle. I'll be real. Like, I think like a strong Newcastle is good for the Premier League. I think it is. Obviously, yeah, people have their thoughts about the ownership and whatnot, but ultimately, you know, it went through. Yes, you know, they got a Saudi sponsor. Yes, they got basically a Saudi Arabian away kit. Yes, you know, the Saudi national team are playing their games at St James's Park now. Yeah, you know, obviously that is a totally separate conversation, of course, but yeah, no, it's obviously it's great for the league, but I mean it makes it harder for us. You know, beforehand when you could almost pick the fucking top 4 every season, now it's a pretty hard thing to do because it could be one of a number of sides. But I mean, mate, you know, obviously Seville tomorrow. What are you thinking score prediction wise for your boys? Are you confident you can get a win? Like, has your confidence been knocked at all in the side, given that the result of the weekend and how you played, or do you just put that down to as, you know what, it's a tough place to go, and these games can happen?
If anything, I'm probably even more confident because you take the last 10 minutes, the boys will be flying. They'll be going to training thinking, bloody hell, we can stink the place out that much and still come away with a result, and we've got that much in us. Because I'm confident we won't play like that again. If we do, then of course you need to go back to training on Wednesday and ask serious questions, what's going on. But mate, we beat City, taking a point at Stamford Bridge, even when we didn't play very well. I'm fully confident that we can get back into our rhythm tomorrow night. They'd have learnt lessons from the game against Lons, wouldn't they? Because we weren't particularly great then, but we didn't really take our chances. So I'm confident we can get a result. I'll go 2-0 Arsenal tomorrow.
Do you think you've got a lot to learn as a team in terms of like playing in intimidating atmospheres, or like particularly away from home in Europe? Do you think there's enough players that have got the know-how there? I know Declan Rice has won a Conference League and whatnot, but do you know what I mean? Like European away games, it's something different to it.
Yeah, it's a good question because a lot of the squad haven't played in the Champions League, so they're going through it for the first time. And yeah, you do have to learn. But the Lons game, that would have been a great experience, and it's quite a different thing to England, isn't it? Because the English atmosphere is completely different to. Quite often, you go to these venues and it is literally their game of the season. So we went to Lons a couple of weeks ago. That was their biggest game of the season.
And PSG probably going there. Those would be the 2 biggest games.
Yeah. And the players just get up for it so much. you have to just let your quality shine through, don't you? Like City have shown in the Champions League and Liverpool, and they've done well. They just go and Liverpool's style of play was just to absolutely batter the opposition from minute one, and City just sucked the life out of the opposition by dominating the ball. Chelsea have won the Champions League in the past by, for example, your most recent Champions League win as well. So we have got to learn it because it's new. But then you could look at it the other way, like they might be fearless. These blokes go to these stadiums, no kind of scars in the Champions League. Let's just go and win like we always try and do. So really interested. We just need to get points on the board and get through this group because I'm really excited to see what we could do in the knockouts. We've got so much ability.
I mean, to be fair, even if you were to lose tomorrow night, I look at the quality of team. Like, I don't think Seville or Lens will travel particularly well. I can't imagine you'd have that many problems beating them at the Emirates. PSV away,
very different, isn't it?
PSV away could potentially maybe be tricky, but look, I think Arsenal got more than enough to get through that group. It would be an absolute disaster if you didn't get through the group stage. I mean, that's a long way. That's a long way off still, but yeah. I mean, it's going to be interesting. Obviously, midweek off for me. It's always shit when it happens. Like you sort of forget about it between the match days, and then when it comes round again, you're just reminded of, pretty shit. At least we've got Carabao Cup next week, so we've got 2 games, 2 games to look forward to. But yeah, pretty round this one out here, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. As always, people, make sure on the way out you smash the likes. We need about 10 more likes on the stream, so make sure on your way out you smash that like button. It's free. It takes seconds. Please subscribe to the channel as well if you're new around here. Edging ever closer towards 7K now, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. It is greatly appreciated, as always, guys. Thanks for the support, Webby. Thanks for your time, as always, bro. Really appreciate it. Guys, catch you again in another one soon. Up the Chelsea, people.